here it's gonna be a big one. We're gonna start with a big one, guys. The Real American Psycho, Tom Cruise.
The cheek-to-cheek smile combined with the empty, soulless eyes, the attention to detail, the perfect hair, the perfect jawline, the perfect appearance. This is just a facade to convince the world he is this successful, happy-go-lucky guy who is actually extremely disturbed and thinks about harming others 24/7. This is what a psychopath looks like. But this is a fictional character played by actor Christian Bale in the movie American Psycho, and Bale said that the inspiration for this character was the real-life Tom Cruise, whose empty laugh, intensity, and robotic physical movements are on full display in this 1996 interview with Rosie O'Donnell.
Because you saw her in Dead Calm, right?
Yes.
And you thought, I like her.
Yeah, I thought she's very talented.
Yeah, she is talented.
I remember him. I remember him from The Outsiders.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
She's coming on this show.
I know, she's
just a couple days, yeah. No, I like her, I do, it's okay. It's Renee I was upset with. It's Renee in the movie with all that kissing with you, Tom. I didn't like that.
However, the actual interview that inspired the American Psycho character was this one with David Letterman, where Tom Cruise laughed uncontrollably while telling the story of him cutting off his co-pilot's oxygen as they flew to dangerous altitude levels.
One time we were flying to Colorado, and I was flying this airplane that we had to go on oxygen, and winds were better at a higher altitude, so we climbed up, and I realized that we couldn't stay at that altitude if on oxygen. I had to descend because I didn't have enough oxygen. So I had a passenger in the back. So we figured out, you know, me and the co-pilot, that if we turned the oxygen off in the back guy, that we could make it at this altitude. so we, you know, it wasn't dangerous or anything, you know.
So what happened when you turned his oxygen off?
He was very quiet. He felt
Letterman didn't seem to think this story was as funny as Tom thought it was.
He fell asleep. He fell asleep. He slept the whole way.
well. But, you know, it's the kind of guy you wanted to have him sleep the whole way. You know, it's like just.
But honestly, looking at it from another direction, isn't that attempted manslaughter? You just turn a guy's oxygen off?
What the hell?
You're lucky you're not doing time, for the love of God.
He woke up.
He did wake up, yeah.
You know, when we were landing on descent,
As the passenger blacked out after being oxygen deprived for several minutes, Tom finds it hysterical how confused the man was when he regained consciousness, feeling numb and disoriented.
Are you serious?
My hands are... He said, my hands...
And people were just laughing too.
My hands are your all's hands. He said, my hands are tingling. I slept the whole way. I said, must have been the way I was laying.
Now, some people look at this as nothing more than dark humor. The guy was fine. It was just a harmless prank. But maybe Christian Bale was actually onto something. And no, I'm not suggesting Tom Cruise is actually a serial murderer or enjoys the suffering of others, but he does have an obvious dark side. One that seems to be ignored by the masses. While they praise him for his box office hits and incredible stunts, Tom credits Scientology as the reason why he is so successful. Scientology is the quote-unquote religion that thrives on forced labor, signing its members to 1 billion-year contracts, having an alleged torture camp called The Hole, among other horrible allegations from former members. Tom is so dedicated to this religion, he abandoned his own 7-year-old daughter and has not seen her in over a decade. Today, we're going to deep dive into the career of Tom Cruise and try to assess why he is so loyal to the shadowy world of Scientology. Tom Cruise's life started out as an abused child who was desperate for a purpose. Cruise has described his father as a merchant of chaos who was a bully and a coward. For me, it was like, there's something wrong with this guy. Don't trust him. Be careful around him. You can imagine that not being able to trust your own father when you are a toddler created a difficult and chaotic environment for Cruise. Additionally, when Cruise was 7 years old, he was diagnosed with dyslexia, which made him feel even more isolated and confused. His father could never hold a steady job, which led to the family moving often. They moved from Syracuse, New York to Ottawa, Canada in 1971 when Tom was in 3rd grade. By the 6th grade, his parents got divorced, and his mother moved Tom and his sisters down to Louisville, Kentucky. According to Shane Dempler, a friend that went to school with Tom in Louisville, Tom was interested in becoming a Catholic priest. He had a very strong Catholic faith, Dempler said. We went to Mass, spent time in the chapel, and enjoyed hearing stories from the priests. We thought the priests had a great lifestyle, and we were really interested in priesthood. Unfortunately, the boys were kicked out of the school after they were caught stealing alcohol and drinking in the woods. Shane recalled, "The school wrote a letter to our parents saying they liked us both, but would prefer if we didn't return. So we weren't kicked out, just preferred not to go." From there, Tom relocated to another seminary school in Cincinnati, Ohio, after being recommended by a local priest. Tom was instantly hooked, said Father Rich Schneider, who gave the speech that brought Cruise to seminary school. "I think he wanted a good education. With his parents going through a divorce, it was tough on him. That's maybe one of the reasons why he came here." His time in Cincinnati did not last long, as his family would ultimately relocate again to Glen Ridge, New Jersey, where he finished high school. After graduation, Tom knew acting was his future. Within his first year of auditioning for various Hollywood roles, he landed a small part in a film called Endless Love. Tom's handsome look and physique made him stand out amongst his peers, which got him an ancillary role in the film Taps. As a novice in the industry, he wanted to learn everything there was to learn about cinema.
The first film that I really got on, which was Taps, I went to every single department and I studied every part of the movie. I went to the camera department, I studied lenses, lighting. You know, I was working with a great cinematographer, Owen Roisman. I studied what producers do, what writers do, what wardrobe does, what the stunt department does, props, sound. I studied every aspect of film.
Tom was obsessed. His work ethic gave Hollywood producers even more of a reason to invest in him. He earned another ancillary role in The Outsiders before securing his first lead role in the 1983 hit Risky Business. Risky Business is an 80s mood film that appealed to teenagers at the time. Every generation has a few cult classic coming-of-age films that are not cinematic masterpieces with intricate plots, but capture somewhat of a realistic look of the aesthetic, attitudes, and behaviors of the kids who grew up in that era. The film grossed $60 million at the box office, and he stole the hearts of young people in the USA. Even at the young age of 19, Tom was mature beyond his years, which can be felt during this 1983 interview with Bobby Wygant.
What do directors, how do they direct? Do they work with you a lot, or do they pretty much give you rein?
Yeah, they leave me alone. I mean, a director, a good director will listen, you know, and trust his artists after casting them. I've been fortunate. I've really had a lot of room with the directors that I've worked with.
Tom holds a very controlled, poised demeanor. Even if he glares at you for a second, you can feel his intensity. He quickly shifts from high-energy laughter to extremely soft-spoken. Tom continued his trajectory as a rising star in Hollywood, and in 1986 he would land a lead role in a classic film that would officially secure him a 40-year legacy. It also ushered him into the controversial Church of Scientology. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Week 2 of the NFL is here, and Underdog wants to make it a lot more exciting. Join the millions of fans that played on Underdog last year.
That's the only time I will skip an ad guy because gambling.
So keep an eye on your lobby. Underdog is the place to play, so sign up and deposit now using promo code Patrickcc to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Thanks, Underdog. In the 1980s, the US was exhausting all of its resources to push military propaganda and program young men for war. G.I. Joe, Cap Guns, Little Green Army Men, Boy Scouts were resurging in popularity, and of course the seemingly endless list of 1980s war movies. Writer Jerry Bruckheimer capitalized on the pro-military trend by focusing on the high-octane, action-packed jobs of fighter pilots. Originally, Tom did not want to participate in the film.
We were turned down by Tom Cruise over and over again, but we arranged with the Blue Angels back in, I guess, '85 to take him up in a jet. And he came down, he had a great ride, walked over to a payphone, called me up and said, "Jerry, I'm in."
Tom Cruise played the role of the charismatic fighter pilot, Pete Maverick Mitchell, an all-American patriot who oozes masculinity and charm. The film was a blockbuster hit, earning $357 million at the worldwide box office. Tom Cruise was a pop culture superstar. Aviator sunglasses became status quo late 80s fashion because of him, and the US military had its last year of positive growth after the movie was released.
Wow.
But behind the scenes, Tom was actually struggling. When I was 22, when I was making Top Gun, I got the chance to make my dream come true to become a pilot. I thought, this is the time to do it, so I had a couple of lessons, but then I blew it off. I'd try to concentrate on what I was reading, then I'd get to the end of the page and have very little memory of anything I'd read. I would go blank, feel anxious, nervous, bored, frustrated, dumb. I graduated high school in 1980, but I didn't even go to my graduation. I was a functioning illiterate. I loved learning, I wanted to learn, but I knew I had failed in the system. In 1986, the year Top Gun came out, I became a Scientologist. A friend gave me a picture book on Scientology, and through this I was introduced to the writings of L. Ron Hubbard, who had founded the religion. Mr. Hubbard was also an educator who had been researching the field for decades. He had found that literacy and comprehension levels were declining worldwide, so in the 1960s he had developed study technology. It pinpoints 3 barriers to learning: lack of mass, you can't learn to fly a plane by just reading about it, you have to sit in the cockpit or at least have a picture of a plane; skipped gradients, trying to master skills or information without mastering or understanding that which comes before them; and misunderstood words, the most important one and cause for stupidity. Once I started focusing on those problems, everything fell into place. Cruise credits Scientology with helping him overcome his learning disability. He is one of the church's most high-profile followers and has become a spokesperson for the organization. However, his close friendship with David Miscavige, the current leader of Scientology, has placed him at the center of several controversies, as well as question his legacy as a whole. Scientology is a religion that many consider to be a
Sonic
cult
or your older
created
Sonic,
by
guys.
science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard.
So pretty much he was taking it. I won't say he wasn't groomed, but like maybe they took advantage of him like struggling with his disability with learning and all that. Maybe that's one of the things. I don't know, man. I really feel like that's the reason why he's grateful for them, for him to help him with his learning disability. That's what I'm thinking.
According to the Church of Scientology, Ron was a highly trained lieutenant commander in the US Navy, who became a war hero that sunk a Japanese submarine, as well as a Purple Heart Award winner due to suffering blinding and crippling injuries through the course of combat in the Second World War. One medical report describes Hubbard as suffering a severe bone infection in the hip and back, forcing him to walk with a cane. Another shows his vision registered at 2100, which according to Medical Review meant that he could not distinguish facial features until 3 or 4 feet away, could not make out a street sign beyond 10 yards, and could not read a newspaper. Whereas the official US Navy documents say that he was not qualified to be a lieutenant commander, he never received a Purple Heart, categorized his injuries as being exposed to light for too long and spraining his ankle, to which they prescribed him dark glasses and declared him ready for duty, as well as analyzed all potential evidence surrounding him sinking a Japanese ship, only for them to find that there was no submarine in the area at the time. Due to the conflicting information, we don't really know the truth about his time spent in the military. What we do know is that he was an incredibly proficient and fast writer. Hubbard holds the Guinness World Record for the most published works by one author. Battlefield Earth, To the Stars, When Shadows Fall, Typewriter in the Sky are just a few of his fantasy, alternate world fiction stories. Although he published books at an incredible rate, there seems to be a quantity over over quality issue, because he was never able to make a financial living off of his work. There have been extensive studies and multiple sources that have corroborated this L. Ron Hubbard quote. He told us that writing science fiction for about a penny a word was no way to make a living. If you really want to make $1 million, he said, the quickest way is to start your own religion. If this quote is true, that would insist that a science fiction writer came up with a silly idea for a religion to get rich, and people happened to buy into it. As Hubbard struggled to sell his books and begged the Veterans Association to increase his monthly allowance so he could pay his bills, he began developing his next big book, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. Dianetics is one of the fundamental pillars of Scientology that is still practiced to this day, nearly 75 years later. Since there was very little to no attention on the importance of maintaining positive mental health in the 1950s, the book became popular quickly, selling over 150,000 copies in its first year, earning Hubbard over $1 million. However, Hubbard's system faced a lot of criticism from doctors and psychologists. They say he lacked scientific evidence and empirical data, and he was using pseudo-scientific concepts to prove his nonsensical ideas. But then Hubbard played the conspiracy card. He convinced his followers that the only reason actual scientists didn't agree with his teachings was because psychologists, pharmaceutical companies, and the medical industry as a whole would lose billions of dollars if they acknowledged that Dianetics was the cure for all psychological pain. Additionally, Hubbard started to expand Dianetics into a broader spiritual belief system, which eventually led to the creation of Scientology in 1953. Hubbard did not complete his college education, nor did he spend years studying any field of medicine or health whatsoever, but he does claim that he cured himself from arthritis, bursitis, blindness, ulcers, and even the common cold. And he was able to do that through Dianetics.
An origin
Dianetics
for a
theory
leader.
describes the human mind as two parts, the conscious analytical mind and the subconscious reactive mind. Hubbard's beliefs were very similar to Sigmund Freud's theory of the unconscious mind and his understanding of how suppressed memories can shape an individual's behavior. However, in Hubbard's theory, all psychological pain and the mental and physical health problems that come from that were a form of memory known as engrams, which are stored in the reactive mind. While Dianetics focused on improving the mind, Scientology took things further by introducing the idea of the Thetan, an immortal spiritual being that lives inside every person. Hubbard believed that each person is actually a Thetan with limitless potential, but this potential is blocked by negative experiences or engrams that have built up over many lifetimes. Scientology therefore became a way to free the Thetan from these engrams, allowing the person to achieve spiritual freedom and reach their full potential. This process is known as going clear, which is the ultimate goal of someone practicing Dianetics. Once someone goes clear, they can then move on to higher levels of spiritual awareness and power, known as the operating Thetan levels. These levels are supposed to give the person more control over themselves and the world around them. Powers such as telepathy, exteriorization, which is the ability to separate from the body with full perception, telekinesis, the ability to move objects with thought. Where most religions focus on a servitude towards a god or a higher power, Scientology kind of does the exact opposite. And although they don't say it specifically, they essentially believe that they are gods or that they can become gods. Tom Cruise is known for reaching extraordinary levels of human excellence, such as learning how to become a fighter pilot, or climbing the tallest building in the world without any sort of harness or rope, among his endless list of other incredible stunts he has performed.
He's done incredible stunts.
It's safe to assume that Tom Cruise believes that going clear has allowed him to accomplish these incredible feats. However, the process of going clear is pretty intense and also costs a lot of money. To go clear, a trained auditor helps a person go through their past experiences to find and deal with the engrams that are holding them back. This process often involves using something called an e-meter, a device that measures the electrical resistance of the skin, which is believed to show the presence of engrams. Auditors use the e-meter to track a person's progress and help them find and resolve resolve deep-rooted negative experiences. A person during an auditing session would be instructed to hold 2 metal cylinders connected to the e-meter, which sends a small electrical current through their body. The e-meter then measures changes in the electrical resistance, which Scientologists believe show changes in the person's mental and spiritual state. The auditor uses these readings to guide the person through questions, but these questions that they ask are often very leading and intended to poke and prod at the deepest, darkest secrets held in your mind and soul. When you learn about how these auditing sessions are done and the types of questions that they ask, you'll see how it almost comes off like an interrogation or a way to give personal information to an organization that could be potentially later used against you.
Yeah, so here's even how a Scientology auditor believes it works. You're holding the cans, there's a tiny little battery in that e-meter.
So they use your fears against you. They learn about you. They learn everything about you. What makes you tick? God damn, what a freak. Wow. All right.
You're completing the circuit when you pick up the cans, right? So you got a little thing going there, and that needle will respond to your physical movement, but that's not what we want. And I'm going to go, is there something you're withholding from me? And what I'm looking for is right when I say at the end of me, I'm looking for the needle to dip to the right. And so I'll give you a really good example of this. So you're holding the cans. Say, is there anything you're withholding from me? And I get an instant read. And I go, is there anything you're withholding from me? You're going to go, I don't think so.
And I don't see the needle.
No, you don't see the needle. Okay. I go, well, what did you think of when I asked you the question? Okay, so you're going to go, I don't know what I was thinking of. And then I'll be like, take a look and I'll help you out here. I'll try to steer you. Okay, so I'm looking to get roughly the same read while you're thinking about whatever. I'm going, what was that? What was that right there?
And you can start digging to what? You can start...
I just want an answer to the question. Okay.
And I can go to memory.
Yeah, and you can give me any answer you want. There's no way for me to know if you're giving me the right answer, but I want you to give me something.
Yeah.
If you say you can't give me anything, I'm going to keep using the e-meter until you give me something.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you give me something. I'm going to get all the details about that, and until like time, place, form, and event, I want to know everything that happened. I want to know all the details. And by the way, I'm writing all this down. So I'm taking notes of everything you're telling me that it's a bad thing that you did that you haven't told me about. Okay, so I'm keeping notes. When you represent to me that you've told me everything there is to tell, I'm looking for the needle to give like a smooth back and forth motion like this. And Scientology calls that a floating needle. That means, in Scientology land, we're done with that.
Now, many people argue that the e-meter is not exactly scientifically proven to really do anything. It does measure some sort of electrical current that takes place in your body and mind, and it is somehow connected, but we can't prove that it indicates anything about mental health or your physical or emotional well-being. Many people look at it as nothing more than hypnosis, and many believe that the auditing process is strategically designed to make people think that it's actually doing something positive in their life.
Being a victim is despised in Scientology because of something called the tone scale. The tone scale is sort of an emotional ranking of a person.
What?
It goes from -40.
Sincerity and beginners. Postulate. What's up with these cartoon characters? Postulate, auxiliary, aesthetic, enthusiasm, cheerfulness, strong interest, boredom, monotony, antagonism. Can't hide, being nothing, being objects, owning bodies, protecting bodies, controlling bodies, regret, blame, accountable, shame, pity, failure. What the? All right.
To 40. Now 0 is death and 0.1 is victim. It is seen as a bad thing to even feel any negative emotions in Scientology because Scientologists believe that if bad things happen to you, it's because you have done something bad to deserve it. It all felt like emotional torture.
So you can see how this is kind of a dangerous gray area. Right? On one hand, the goal of the therapy sessions is for you to feel better, for you to cope with all of your past trauma and your negativity, and for that to then release and have positive ramifications on your life. But then the other hand is like, well, no, you're not actually solving these problems. You're just being tricked into thinking that you're solving these problems, and then you have to pay for more auditing sessions for you to keep solving these problems. And we'll go deeper into the financial component of all of this in a minute. But in the late 80s and early 90s, Tom Cruise wasn't overtly public about his Scientology ties, as he was still growing his career. After Top Gun, he continued to have an incredible run in Hollywood. The Color of Money, Cocktail, Rain Man, Days of Thunder, A Few Good Men, The Firm, hit after hit after hit. Everything that Tom Cruise starred in was a box office smash. In 1988, he was the highest grossing box office star, and to this day, he is the #6 highest grossing actor of all time, with a combined total of $12 billion generated. He was a convincing leading man who does all of his own stunts. He had near perfect looks. On set, he was known to be honest, humble, and a genuine person. He was considered by many to be the perfect human, yet somehow still very mysterious.
You've got one of the nicest reputations in Hollywood. I mean, everyone who interviews you says, hands down, you are polite and giving. But I've interviewed you a lot of times, and you don't let people real close. How come?
I think I'm letting you pretty close, Lisa.
Do you feel like you hold something back or you protect something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this, to help promote the films. I mean, I really don't hold back that much. I mean, you ask me anything, but I mean, there is a certain, certain things that I really don't want to talk about, and certain things that really aren't important, aren't important for people to hear, and I really don't even think they want to hear.
In the early 90s, Tom began speaking about the Church of Scientology more publicly.
Tom, let me try to understand. The Church of Scientology, is this something that feeds you spiritually, or is it a technique that just helps your mind? Is it a religion?
Yeah, I mean, by definition, it is a religion.
And is it for you? Does it help you in a spiritual way?
Yeah, but the thing is that it's not a matter of being fed something. And it is not someone telling you how to live your life. It is not someone feeding you what is real for them. It is what is real for you. It is a self-exploration.
Yeah, that guy's gone.
That it is considered so controversial, that it is considered a cult,
are you into Scientology?
I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
No, it doesn't. For me, I don't care. It doesn't affect me at all. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever anybody thinks or what they don't know, I know what I know.
He still seemed to be reserved, not willing to go into immense detail about how the church functions and his role in it. In 1986, L. Ron Hubbard died, and David Miscavige was named chairman of the board, or the leader of Scientology, in 1987.
At 2,000 hours Friday, the 24th of January,
we're watching a video about Tom Cruise being a psycho.
L. Ron Hubbard discarded the body he had used in this lifetime for 74 years, 10 months, and 11 days. The body he had used to facilitate his existence in this messed universe had ceased to be useful.
Yeah, Scientology is so fucking weird, man.
Had become an impediment to the work he now must do outside of its confines.
In 1993, Scientology became a recognized religion in the United States, which dramatically increased its legitimacy. For many years, the IRS refused to grant Scientology this status because of the concerns about its financial practices and whether it was really qualified as a religion. The Church of Scientology fought back by filing many lawsuits against the IRS and reportedly harassed IRS officials. Finally, in 1993, after years of conflict, the IRS granted Scientology tax-exempt status, recognizing it as a religious organization. This decision was highly controversial and led to widespread criticism, with many people believing that the IRS had been pressured into making the decision. And as you'll learn in a bit, Scientologists go to extreme lengths to gather sensitive information about others. Many speculate that they pressured, blackmailed, and threatened to expose government officials until they were granted tax-exempt status. But that's all conspiracy. This status allowed Scientology to
Wasn't there a
operate
guy
as a
from the 70s
nonprofit,
show,
which means
in
it doesn't have to
Scientology
pay
too as
federal
well?
income taxes nor property taxes, and has allowed them to accumulate massive wealth. It is estimated that the church has generated between $1 and $3 billion. But how did they get that money? Well, first of all, donating money to a church or a religion is very common. Scientology happens to strategically recruit members of mass wealth, celebrities, Hollywood superstars, so it's safe to assume that those people are donating potentially millions of dollars. However, the auditing sessions are also very costly. Remember, the main goal or the point of being a Scientologist is to go clear. However, there are levels or goals that you essentially rank up to along the way. These are called operating thetan levels or OT levels, which are the goals that you hit before reaching the bridge to total freedom. Each spiritual level has an estimated real cost that it would take to reach it. Costs can vary considerably depending on the needs of the individual, but it is speculated that somebody would be paying well over $100,000 into potentially $500,000 in auditing sessions to reach clear.
Finish a course or an auditing action. You're not allowed to finish it until you write up a success story on how great it was and how it changed your life and how you would want other people to have that. Now, if you're like, I'm not really feeling it. You're like, oh, you're not? We're gonna have to go back and see what's wrong with your last level, and that costs you more money.
Hop on the lobotomy machine, my friend.
The beatings will continue until morale improves. But you get to a point where it literally costs you more money to say that thing didn't give you exactly what you hoped it would. So you're trained to lie to yourself.
That's crazy.
Just to save money. And then you get up and you lie to everyone else to get them to do it as well.
You can also pay money in advance to the church for them to hold it and keep it as almost like a bank account for auditing sessions in your next life.
They're good people, and they're being defrauded out of their life savings. I mean, it costs $250,000 easy to be assigned.
How do these people though that aren't who don't have a lot of money? How do people afford that?
That's the thing. It's amazing. It shows you the ability of someone who has a belief and a faith that they're doing amazing things. They work to pay for their religion. They live below their means to pay for their religion.
It is impossible to advance in the religion without completing the required courses and auditing sessions. No other modern religion with a congregation size comparable to that of the Church of Scientology mandates recurring payments to merely participate. Yet, Scientology's entire foundation and religious ideology is built upon these required payments from parishioners. Additionally, the Church of Scientology saves an enormous amount of money in labor costs because they pay their employees or volunteers next to nothing. A mere $50 per week stipend. However, many of them are okay with this form of payment as they have become fully dependent on the Church of Scientology in every aspect of their lives.
The C organization is the most dedicated version, the most dedicated brand of Scientologists. So there's three echelons of Scientologists. There's public, who just live normal lives in the real world and they pay to do Scientology courses and auditing. Then there's staff members who also live in the real world, but work on 2.5-year contracts or 5-year contracts at their local Scientology organization. And then once they finish their contract, their debt is paid or whatever. And then there's the Sea Org members. These are the guys who sign the billion-year contracts.
Billion-year
They don't
contracts.
have lives in the outside world. They don't own property. They live in Scientology-provided housing. They eat in Scientology-run cafeterias.
Is there an actual contract that says 1 billion years?
It's symbolic, but yes.
Okay.
It's not a legally enforced contract.
According to L. Ron Hubbard, the Sea Org initially operated on 3 real ships, the Diana, the Athena, and the Apollo, which Hubbard used to spread the teachings of his new religion. According to Hubbard, much of the galaxy, including Earth, was ruled tens of millions of years ago by the Galactic Confederation.
Oh my god. Yeah, I remember they explained this in South Park. They even put a caption on South Park that this is this is actually what they actually believe in. Yo, Buttercup, I feel like you should join Scientology. I feel like your god Exuno will do great for you. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. What's the Scientology is insane, man. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like the control of them, holy shit, bro.
Confederacy, controlled by a tyrant named Xenu. Xenu was eventually overthrown by a group with the Confederacy known as the Loyal Officers, and Sea Org is modeled after these Loyal Officers.
What?
Sea Org members are considered the most dedicated Scientologists, signing 1 billion-year contracts to serve the church across multiple lifetimes. Many
Can you see that? A billion-year contract. A billion-year contract. No, it's not a multi-year. It's a billion-year contract. I would not advise you to do that. I kind of want to sign a billion-year contract up front.
Many join at a young age, some even as children, and endure a rigorous lifestyle that includes up to 100-hour work weeks, strict discipline, and a $50 per week wage. They do not have relationships or communication with the outside world. They are not allowed to have children. They eat.
Imagine you're working for almost 100 hours, right? 100 hours, and you want to get paid $50. You only get paid $50. How would you guys feel about that?
Eat, sleep, and breathe solely for the purpose of Scientology. They do normal jobs, just like any other business, but they are assigned to them like a military post. You have the treasury, which consists of people who receive, collect and invoice money, pay bills, manage assets. You also have sales representatives who get people to sign up for the religion. You have a promotional team who sends out flyers, emails, and advertisements for the church. You also have auditors, and the people who train the auditors, and the people who monitor the people who are training the auditors, and then the people who get members to pay for the auditing sessions and constantly pester members to sign up for more auditing sessions. If any, and I mean any task, no matter how small it is, that they were assigned to get done is not done by the end of the day, they will not stop working. Whether your task is to organize thousands of files by hand, or sign someone up for an auditing session, or merely just dust the floor, if the task is not done, you don't stop working. In 1975, Sea Org transitioned to land-based operations.
How's it legal?
By 2000, the number of Sea Org members was estimated at around 5,800. Most members now live in church complexes around the world, including locations in Los Angeles, Florida, Copenhagen, London, and Sydney, with some assigned to smaller centers or acting as missionaries. And still to this day, there are many people that live and work on the Sea Organization motor vessel Freewinds. Scientology reports that they have millions of members worldwide, and that is this rapidly growing religion that people love. But most of these buildings are vastly empty, and it seems like they really don't have that many members, potentially in the ballpark of 40,000 people. There are countless stories of former members who have escaped Scientology, who have often described themselves as being trapped in a cult. Leah Remini is an actress and former Scientologist who escaped and has dedicated a good part of her life to expose the horrors of life as a member. We have heard stories of mind control, to forced labor, to sexual assault and abuse, to a secret prison camp called The Hole, where disgraced members of the church are sent to effectively be tortured.
Describe it for us. It had bars on the windows, and the one entrance was guarded by security 24 hours a day. The hole basically was some kind of a slang term that had been coined long before I got there, and it was where you ate there, you slept there on the floor, and you never left with the exception of a brief period to go take a shower. When you say slept there on the floor, did you have cots or bunks or some kind of beds? No, you slept you were given a sleeping bag, you slept on the floor in a sleeping bag. And what were the conditions like on the floor to sleep? Well, there were ants. The place was infested by ants, so ants would crawl on you. And there was a 2-week period during that time when all the electricity had been shut off, as ordered by Mr. Miscavige, and this was, of course, in summer in the desert, and so the temperature in there was about 106.
Ooh.
Why didn't you just take off and get away from the hole?
not possible. It's absolutely not physically possible.
100.
Make it past security. The windows were barred.
A
Right
prison?
from the beginning when I went in, I obviously was trying to figure out, plotting how to get out.
Were you used to, in your life, getting beaten up? Was that something you were used to?
No, never.
And you were a 40-something-year-old woman with a very, very respected job.
Yes.
Any and all accusations of major or minor misconduct within the church has been vehemently denied. They have never been tried or found guilty of committing any sort of crime. However, one form of justice they did admit to doing is called overboarding, which in the days of L. Ron Hubbard sailing the Mediterranean in his fleet of ships consisted of throwing members off the ship into the ocean. According to author Janet Reitman, the modern version of this justice consisted of going outdoors in the middle of the night and assembling at the base's swimming pool or its muddy lake. Members would then jump or be pushed into the water, often in freezing conditions, while fully clothed and with Miscavige watching. Church lawyer Monique Yingling said overboarding is a part of ecclesiastical justice. They're not backing away from it or ashamed of it, she said. It has been done hundreds of times with precautions taken to make it safe. Scientology has a no-tolerance policy on anyone who criticizes or attacks their practices. It is often referred to as attack the attacker. The procedure is as follows. Spot who is attacking us, start investigating them promptly for felonies or worse using own professionals, not outside agencies. Double curve our reply by saying we welcome an investigation of them. Start feeding lurid, blood, sex, crime, actual evidence on attackers to the press. You can get reasonable about it and lose. Sure, we break no laws. Sure, we have nothing to hide. But attackers are simply an anti-Scientology propaganda agency so far as we are concerned. They have proven they want no facts and will only lie no matter what they discover. So banish all ideas that any fair hearing is intended and start our attack with their first breath. Never wait. Never talk about us. Only them. Use their blood, sex, crime to get headlines. Don't use us.
There's a process called noisy investigation. It's written up in Scientology and approved by Ron Hubbard. And what a Scientology agent will do is they'll get a list of everybody you know, including your doctor, your dentist, your travel agent, whoever, your friends, your family. They'll then contact every person on the list, whether directly or on the phone, and say, we're gathering information about John Atack or whoever, and their criminal background. We found out some really interesting things already. I had this done to me, and my mother-in-law, one of my brothers-in-law decided to talk to the private detective who'd been sent over from Los Angeles. He traveled as far as Australia to find people who'd known me. It was put about that I was a recovered heroin addict. I'd never taken heroin in my life. I was a rapist. I'd attempted murder. I'd molested children. These are standard stories that are told about critics of Scientology. They're made up.
Check out this entire YouTube channel that creates high production value interviews, all dedicated to saying negative things about ex-Scientology members who are now.
Let's see. Says Cosimo of Aaron Smith. Leave as a colleague. Aaron was anything but honest. She had tears in her eyes. So loud and disruptive. He had zero scrupulous. What is that? He had picked a lot of fights. Behind closed doors, he was a monster, incapable of evaluating of his behavior. I had to physically pull Aaron off. He definitely knew about that. He violently attacked her. He actually broke the drywall.
Now speaking out. Aaron Smith Levins, Mark and Claire Headley, and of course Leah Remini. They even get family members to speak about how violent, abusive, and horrible these ex-members are. Even David Miscavige's own father, who got him into the church to begin with, claims that he was being tracked down and targeted by the church.
I was a Scientologist for 42 years.
Were you raised in it?
No, I got my family in 1970. But I was in the church for 42 years. The last 26 and a half years, I worked at the international base in Hemet, California. I escaped from that base on March 25th, 2012.
You escaped?
Escaped, that's right. I had to plan that escape for 6 months. About a year and a half later, there was a private investigator caught by the name of Dwayne Powell, who was around the corner from my house looking at a house to buy so he could spy on me from that house. So a lady in the neighborhood saw him, and she thought he was a drug dealer or up to no good. So she called the West Dallas police, and Nick Pye came out and confronted the guy. He gave Nick some shit. Nick said, "Hey, listen, man, you're under arrest. Do you mind if I look in your car?" So Nick went to the van and opened it up, and in a trunk, there were 5 license plates from 5 different states. There were 2 handguns, a stun gun, 2 rifles, 1 fitted up with a silencer, and 2,000 rounds of ammunition. So they arrested the guy. They took him in for interrogation, how they operated. They were getting paid $10,000 a week to follow me and report on my doings from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock every night.
I'm sure many of you know that the Scientology iceberg is extremely deep. This information just scratches the surface, but it's important to understand a simple breakdown of this, as it is effectively Tom Cruise's belief system. And since Tom is one of the biggest outspoken activists supporting Scientology, his support gives them an enormous amount of legitimacy, since he is a beloved superstar worldwide. Every time they open a new church, they invite Tom to give a speech at the grand opening.
Our kids
Are you serious?
This world needs help, the kind of help where people can help themselves. Now, I have and will continue to dedicate my life to accomplishing this. And I am supremely grateful to Mr. L. Ron Hubbard for the study technology he provided, because I would not be here today if I didn't get that. And I am honored to be part of the applied scholastics movement, because I know now that I can truly help. And so can you.
But regardless of his ties to the controversial church, Tom continued to have rampant success in Hollywood. The Firm, Jerry Maguire, Mission Impossible, which became a 7-part series that defined his career as a stuntman. He learned how to skydive, fly, and put in the homework to make a role look realistic. He also had Eyes Wide Shut, Magnolia, The Last Samurai, and Minority Report to prove that he wasn't just a one-trick pony who does heroic action films. However, with the extreme rise of tabloid culture, publications were interested in poking and prodding around the personal lives of celebrities. And since Tom was a wildly successful actor with a popular actress wife and 2 adopted children, they were a pretty good target.
We're private people. We are human beings. You know, we are human beings. We have feelings, and more importantly than that, we have a family now. We have children. And I think that
didn't the wife
we were told,
run away from him?
You know, just don't worry. And suddenly all these kind of rumors and gossip all of a sudden starts getting printed in, you know, legitimate magazines. And, you know, and I'd send letters asking for an apology. You know, it's not true. And then you start getting letters back where they say, you know, and I just said, you know what? I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And it's not right. And if they're not going to be responsible, I am going to make them be responsible.
The Church of Scientology has been blamed for having a huge impact on how Tom Cruise's relationships started and ended, making people wonder just how much control it has over its most famous members. Cruise was married to actress Mimi Rogers in 1987, who was the one who actually helped convert Tom to Scientology, but by the end of 1989, Cruise had filed for divorce. According to former Scientologist Mike Rinder, who wrote about his experiences in his book, A Billion Years, My Escape from a Life in the Highest Ranks of Scientology, he claims that Scientology leader David Miscavige was heavily involved in Cruise's life at the time, even helping to facilitate Cruise's relationship with Nicole Kidman while they were filming Days of Thunder in 1990. Rinder alleges that Greg Wilher, Cruise's personal auditor from the church, was assigned to get Mimi to agree to a divorce so Tom could marry Nicole, which was highly unusual and would never have happened with a normal Scientologist. But what could Scientology's problem be with Mimi Rogers? Well, Rogers' father, Philip C. Spickler, had been closely involved with Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, but he left the church in the early 1980s. This reportedly made Mimi Rogers herself less favorable in the eyes of Scientology's leadership, particularly David Miscavige. Morton's biography claims that the Scientology leadership felt such such hostility towards Mimi's father that Mimi was stained by association, which may have contributed to David Miscavige's push for the divorce. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman met during the filming of Days of Thunder in 1989 and married in 1990. During their marriage, Cruise became more deeply and publicly involved in Scientology. Kidman, who was raised Catholic, was not initially a member of the church, but eventually became more involved and even undergoing frequent auditing sessions. However, their relationship with the church became strained as Kidman allegedly expressed concerns about the church's influence over Cruise, as well as her not wanting her children, Isabella and Connor, who were then 8 and 6 at the time, to be raised under Scientology's teachings and methods. One former Scientologist, Teresa Summers, who raised one child inside Scientology and another outside, shared her experience with the church's practices. Summers described how the church discouraged regular medical treatment, comfort, and nurturing for children. Instead, children were expected to do physical labor and were subjected to strict educational practices that focused more on Scientology's teachings than on regular school subjects. The church was allegedly concerned that Kidman was pulling Cruise away from Scientology. After their divorce in 2001, this now iconic photo of Kidman was taken where she is seen reaching her arms out in pure joy and relief that the marriage is finally over. She also left Scientology around the same time. Unfortunately, she was not able to get her kids out, as Tom retained custody of the 2 children. In the early 2000s, more people than ever were trying to expose Scientology for what they believe it truly is. And since Tom Cruise is the most notable member, anything involving him would get more attention, more views, more clicks, etc. Like this video of him hanging out on the freeway ship celebrating his 42nd birthday.
Thank you.
It's so weird.
I am not, I don't know where I am right now. You know, you have to kind of be there to understand this reality. You know how that is? This is incredible. This is just, I will never, how do I thank you? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's the best birthday ever. I mean, ever.
Or the speech he gave when accepting Scientology's made-up Freedom Medal of Valor.
These are the times now, people, okay? These are the times we will all remember.
Uh-huh.
Were you there?
Have you been a crazy-ass motherfucker?
What did you do? I think you know that I am there for you. And I do care so very, very, very much. So what do you say? We need to clean this place up? Huh? Because we're counting on you. Okay? All right? To LRH.
But there was one video that fundamentally changed Scientology's public reputation. In this 9-minute video of what seems to be a Scientology promotion reel, Tom is ranting about Scientology with the signature Mission Impossible theme song playing in the background. And just like every other time he talks about Scientology, he says a whole lot of nothing.
You can just see the look in their eyes. You know the ones that are doing, you know, and you know the spectators who are the ones that are going, well, it's easy for you, or what am I doing? And it's just, that thing is, I've canceled that in my area. It's like, man, you're either in or you're out. That's spectatorism, and it's something that is, we have no time for it now. So it's our responsibility to educate, create the new reality. You know, we have that responsibility to say, hey, this is the way it should be done, because we do it this way and people are actually getting better. And let's get it done. You know, let's really get it done and have enough love, compassion, and toughness that you're gonna do it.
What the fuck, bro?
Do it right.
Trust me when I say that this entire 9-minute video is just him stringing together a bunch of vague, non-descriptive sentences that absolutely lead to no point whatsoever. This video was so confusing and so laughable that it started to turn Scientology into somewhat of a joke or a meme. It began to lose its sort of mysterious and almost cool and interesting luster, and yeah, people were just not taking it seriously anymore, like it was just a joke. To add fuel to the fire, South Park made an entire episode mocking Scientology.
It all began 75 million years ago. Back then, there was a
Yep,
galactic
that's the
federation
one
of
I
planets,
did to
which was ruled over
Scientology.
by the evil Lord Xenu.
They even put a caption of saying how fake. Oh my god, I remember this, dude. I was like, wait, what? Like they put a caption like, no, all this is what they actually believe in. I'm like, what the fudge?
Xenu thought his galaxy was overpopulated, and so he rounded up countless aliens from all different planets, and then had those aliens frozen. Frozen alien bodies were loaded onto Xenu's galactic.
This is what Scientologists actually believe. And it came from a guy who was writing comic books, trying to make a living for comic books. So he created a religion that could be created as a comic book.
Galactic cruisers, which looked like DC-8s, except with rocket engines, and dumped them into the volcanoes of Hawaii.
Of Hawaii,
The
of all
aliens were no
places.
longer frozen, they were dead. The souls of those aliens, however, lived on, and all floated up towards the sky. Xenu didn't want their souls to return, and so he built giant soul catchers in the sky. There, the souls were forced to watch days of brainwashing material, which tricked them into believing a false reality. Xenu then released the alien souls, which roamed the Earth aimlessly in a fog of confusion.
Oh
At the
my
dawn
god.
of man, the souls finally found bodies which they could grab onto.
But the ironic thing was, all they did was just explain what Scientologists actually believe. Because of this episode, the Office of Special Affairs launched an investigation into Matt Stone and Trey Parker. The Scientology OSA contacted their close friends looking for any vulnerabilities to exploit. A Scientology insider leaked this disturbing information. There are some strings that will be pulled on the PRC on Stone. Otherwise, the special collections, covert information gathering such as trash collection, purchased phone records, hacked airline reservations, purchased bank records, will be debugged in order to get some viable strings that can be pulled. Despite their efforts, they were never able to find anything about Matt and Trey Parker.
When you talk about Scientology, you're used to the response that people give you, aren't you? That you're some kind of nutcase, you know, there's some kind of lunatic, fringe sort of religion thing.
Used to the response. I mean,
fly around in
that's
spaceship.
bigotry.
Well,
that is the religious equivalent of
I'm
racism.
putting the point to you that this is people's reaction.
No, I think maybe people say that to you. They don't say that to me.
With Scientology being scrutinized and laughed at more than ever, Tom's behavior wasn't really helping. It all started in 2005 when Tom was doing media tours expressing his profound love for his new girlfriend, Katie Holmes.
First of all, thanks for coming to my Legends Ball with Katie. Was that the best fun? Was that? Yes, yes! What has happened to you?
What the hell? What the hell? What is he doing?
Something happened to you. Something happened to you.
I'm in love.
No, they're literally on the edge of their seats. They're like this. No, I know what he's doing. He's processing. He's trying to figure out what he is going to tell, what he isn't going to tell. Have you ever felt this way before?
What the hell? And the sad thing is, I know how this ended. Yeah, she there was like tabloids, I think, when I was younger. Like, she ran away. Like, she was depressed or something like that. All crazy shit. And she escaped. She came back. She escaped. Like, it was all over the place, dude.
But some interviewers, like Matt Lauer, wanted to learn about how Scientology affects Tom's relationships.
Katie has mentioned that she is embracing, or at least exposing herself and opening herself up to Scientology. At this stage in your life, could you be with someone who doesn't have an interest?
You know, Scientology is something that you don't understand. It's like you could be a Christian and be a Scientologist, okay? Scientology is something...
So it doesn't replace religion.
And it is a religion because it's dealing with the spirit, you know, you as a spiritual being. And it's something that
There's tools that you have that you apply to your life.
They then go on to discuss when Tom Cruise criticized actress Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants for postpartum depression.
And I know that psychiatry is a pseudoscience.
But Tom, if she said that this particular thing helped her feel better, whether it was the antidepressant or going to a counselor or a psychiatrist, isn't that enough?
Matt, you have to understand this. Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is this was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against Brooke's will.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
Aren't there examples, and might not Brooke Shields be an example of someone who benefited from one of those drugs?
All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
So postpartum depression to you is
Matt,
kind of a little psychological gobbledygook?
No, I did not say that.
I'm just asking, what would you call it?
Matt, that is now you're talking about two different things.
But that's what she went on the antidepressant for.
But what happens, the antidepressant, all it does is mask the problem. There's ways of vitamins and through exercise and various things. I'm not saying that isn't real. That's not what I'm saying. That's an alteration of what I'm saying. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer, that these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that so that we don't end up in a brave new world.
While Tom does make some interesting points about the potential dangers of using prescription medication,
as
well as claiming that it would be advantageous for...
I mean, there are been crazy things for like Netflix about talking about like the drugs, the systems of the hospitals and prescriptions, like how they're abused and how easily it's to somewhat get it and for them to make money off until you're pretty much dead. Because there is also like an addiction thing, right? About these like drugs. Like it even gives you a warning if you get like a certain type of drug that is like a kind of like addicting. It will give you a type of a warning, like if you're starting to get addicted, please call this number or something like that. Or talk to your doctor, something like that. And it is a crazy industry. I've seen. I mean, it's just a Netflix documentary, so it's not like everything, but it is a crazy industry, man. They'll try to give you drugs until you die.
For us to pursue more natural remedies, it's kind of hard to take him seriously when he says that psychiatry is pseudoscience, but he also believes that paying to reach your operating thetan levels will allow you to cross the bridge into total freedom. Tom and Katie Holmes married in 2006, and from the very beginning, there were rumors about Scientology's involvement in the relationship. Cruise introduced Holmes to Scientology shortly after they started dating. Katie, who was raised Catholic, decided to convert to Scientology, which nobody was surprised. Soon after, their marriage was official. Katie Holmes was encouraged to cut ties with her previous management team and replace them with people connected to Scientology, effectively putting her career in the church's control. As time went on, Holmes became increasingly uncomfortable with Scientology's influence on their lives, particularly concerning their daughter, Suri. Tom insisted that Katie deliver the baby in near silence, following a Scientology ritual meant to prevent negative experiences from being imprinted on the child's mind. This silent birthing technique is part of the belief system that the noise during childbirth would cause engrams. There were rumors that the church had plans for Suri to join the Sea Org, which really made Katie worry and realize she needed to make a change. There were rumors that she was accompanied by a Scientology handler during her public appearances who would feed her lines about how much she adored Tom, as well as the church allegedly micromanaging various aspects of their relationship. Rumors aside, when analyzing what actually happened after their divorce is really telling about the reality of their relationship. You see, while Holmes was with Tom, he still had custody of his two children. Bella and Connor are devoted to their father and Scientology, and those children never really saw their mother, Nicole Kidman. So while Katie was with Tom, she was fearful this could happen to her child if she got a divorce, that her child would essentially be trapped in Scientology under Tom's custody, and then she just wouldn't see her daughter. So Katie Holmes planned for months behind Tom's back and completely blindsided him with the news that she wanted a divorce. And therefore, Tom and Scientology were unable to control the way that the media reported on this. When the divorce proceedings finally came out, they revealed the lengths to which Holmes went to escape Scientology and Tom's control. She had to use disposable burner phones and secret laptops to communicate with her lawyers and planned her escape in fear that the church would step in and do something to her and take her daughter. She almost immediately moved to New York, which was a strategic move to secure primary custody of Surrey. Scientology members were allegedly following her in New York, so out of fear she called the police because she believed church members were planning to abduct her daughter. Katie also fired her entire team that had worked for her during her marriage to Cruz, including her publicist and security detail. She had to wipe her entire life clean because of the grip Scientology had on her life. The divorce settlement was reached with Holmes securing primary custody of her daughter. Since then, she has kept her distance from Scientology and enrolled Surrey in a Catholic private school. Tom has agreed to pay Holmes $400,000 per year until Surrey is 18. However, he has not seen his daughter in over a decade since she and her mother are not Scientologists. Now, it is somewhat normal for a parent and child to disagree on values, especially religious ones. And there are definitely situations where conflicting religious beliefs will lead to a parent losing connection with their child. But many people just simply look at Scientology as not worth losing your child over. If you were to just look at Tom's opinions on Scientology, you would learn that it is a belief system that helped him become an incredible human being. He overcame his illness and used their teachings to accomplish his biggest life dreams, which is good for him. Since Scientology is deeply rooted in and centered around self-fulfilling prophecies, ones that coincidentally require people to pay enormous amounts of money to achieve, it's not really much of a noble cause that people respect. As reported by Vox, according to former Scientology officials, the church...
Because they always do this. They always have like an actual good story case, right? Like, hey, we are doing this, we're doing that, and we are like we're pursuing that, right? And like they have like a legit person to actually help, right? That one person, which is in this case I'm seeing as Tom Cruise, and they're using him to kind of persuade others to join, but in a lie. Like, oh, it worked for me. It was legit work for me, guys. They taught me so many things. It was good. It was awesome. It was freaking phenomenal. But when they join and other people join who are like pretty much trying to find a purpose, they get shit on. Like, all right, here we go.
Church has continued to manage Cruz's life. Reportedly, it granted him the full benefits of its more unsavory enterprises, including the church's alleged use of slave labor. Former Scientologist John Brossow says the church has custom-built luxury vehicles and sound systems for Cruz, and provides the staff who manage his many homes. Because this labor is provided by the church, it's done through the Sea Org, the Scientologist association that has been accused of human trafficking and forced labor. The church has described these claims as both scurrilous and ridiculous. The picture painted by Cruz by former members of the church is not flattering. They tend to describe Cruz as a well-meaning man who fundamentally is not curious, and who is happy to have beautiful things handed to him without looking at their cost. Scientology is attractive to Cruz in this account because it makes his life easier while simultaneously flattering his ego with the belief that he is a hero. Do you think Tom is essentially in too deep? Like, yeah, maybe he does want to see his daughter, but they have too much dirt on him, and it's almost a hostage-type situation. Do you think he is actually an evil man who is taking advantage of forced labor and a tax-exempt fortune? Do you think he is conveniently turning a blind eye to the alleged horrors and is going to play the whole "I was brainwashed" card when it all comes crashing down? Or maybe you think he is actually brainwashed, and he is potentially a victim just like every other Scientologist. It doesn't make you look at his movies or legacy any differently. Drink water.
Bro, you said drink water in the past freaking hour, dude?
The cheek.
It took an hour for you to say to drink water, bro. An hour. Wow, that hour went back quick, honestly. God damn, bro, I actually watched the whole hour. Scientology was one of my few times the IRS actually lost. I know, man. What the hell? I know what is. It's clearly the funniest Scientology joke ever. All it takes is $1.2 million in 14 years, and you'll be able to understand it. In the book, Patrick Bateman actually meets Tom Cruise in an elevator of his building. Saga deserved an award for spinning the true reality of the many places it twisted and died. Tom Cruise, I cut off a oxygen, guys. Isn't that attempted manslaughter? Tom Cruise and the audience laughter. Like, what the fuck? I would have sued his ass, dude. Like, what the fudge? Sometimes leaders were laughing at their followers, just like Tom Cruise were laughing at the oxygen panic. Katie Holmes' escape from Tom Cruise was like something out of Mission Impossible. Pretty much. She literally beat the system. She outplayed them, pretty much. Like, she literally outplayed them. Like, her story could easily become a movie, by the way. And Tom Cruise would play himself, and Katie Holmes would play herself. The fact that crowd keeps following the oxygen story. Yeah, that was weird. So, again, I didn't talk too much because this video is like an hour long, so I was just drawing along and making little, like, stupid comments. But overall, yeah, I learned Scientology from South Park, and I learned how crazy it is. I even watched a video of, like, I did find it interesting before what Scientology was, and it was a video of a cartoon using fireflies as a way to explain Scientology, and we were going to that rabbit hole, but then South Park came out with it, and we were like, "What the fudge?" Like, we were like, "What the fudge?" But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. It's an hour long, so yeah, that's crazy.